Ladies and gentlemen, there seems to be an issue with on the technical front. Rajdeep sir, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you
We've
very much.
you've taken the time to be here.
And I,
Um,
I think he has to just unmute himself.
yes, we've let him know that. Hopefully, he will be figuring it out.
Yeah, I think that's the only issue. I think
That,
it's just
that seems to be the only issue. Yes, I'm sure there's someone who's getting in touch with him to fix that.
he just needs to press that unmute. I'm also not very technologically savvy, so
I think we're all learning. This year has given us so much to
abs-
learn, and
absolutely,
quite the opportunity.
absolutely. So,
So,
are you doing this from more afternoon every day, or over the next today and tomorrow?
we started it yesterday, sir, and
Oh,
it started in the evening yesterday. So we started
okay.
about 5 yesterday, and it's over the weekend. So today's day two, and we finish tomorrow evening.
Wow. Okay.
So
Great.
yes, it's a 3 day lit fest, and like I was saying in the beginning, thanks to the pandemic, we have you with us, and we
No,
have an audience that is.
I would much rather be in Chandigarh.
Oh, won't we all be at the lake club and be doing this with the Himalayas in the background? But
So where do
well,
you what is the venue that you normally have in Chandigarh for this?
we normally do it at the lake club, which is just by the
Oh,
Sukna Lake.
oh, lovely.
Yes,
That's lovely.
and it's the season where birds are migrating, so there are ducks all over
Right.
the lake. It's quite a pretty scene.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I've often said that out of this Indian cities, in terms of living standards, Chandigarh is right up there.
Oh, absolutely,
Certain,
absolutely.
certainly better than the gas chamber that we are living in Delhi.
You're not too far away. You should just drive down.
I know, I know. I was supposed to come for a wedding last weekend, 2 weekends ago. I dropped out because of COVID. So I said, might as well not travel. But yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
I
it's nice to know. It's good to know as a Chandigarhite that you enjoy
next
the.
year, next year you have to call me. I'll come.
Absolutely,
Hopefully,
we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you.
I'll come next year.
So while Jupinderji comes back, let's just warm up to the session
Sure.
a little bit. And you've written two books, both on the government and how the election that changed India, and most recently how Modi won India.
That's right.
So what was it? I mean, why did you choose to write about this at this point in time? In so many years of journalism, why now?
It's a good question. I'll tell you why. The first one, which was written in 2014, was written against the backdrop of me having just left CNN IBN, and for the first time in 29 years or whatever, 26 years of professional life at that time, I had some time off. And I just thought that this election had been fascinating, the 2014 election, where you had suddenly seen the dismantling of the Congress and the rise of the BJP, and so when I sort of uh, and I'm an election junkie, a political junkie. So I just thought that we need to sort of document this for the future. How did the BJP become this dominant party in 2014, and where did the Congress go wrong? So I think it came from that. I think it comes from the fact that I grew up in the 70s. There was the great election of 77. But today, if I go back, there's very little written about how Indira Gandhi lost. How did the mighty Indira Gandhi get defeated? So I felt that maybe 20 years from now, someone will want to know how did Mr. Modi do what he did,
Right.
and so that's where the first book came from, and I think the second came again from I guess my publisher said you need a sequel, so. And I think in many ways 2019 is even more significant than 2014 because it's one thing to win an election as a challenger, it's another thing to win the election as an incumbent and then
Right.
even win it with a bigger margin. So I think elections in India have become more sophisticated, much more organized. Winning elections is not just is now almost a science now. It's there's this whole what I call the WhatsAppization of elections.
Mm-hmm.
You know, elections are now being fought on WhatsApp. You know, everybody has WhatsApp groups. The BJP had, I mean, this is one of the things I bring out in the book, the amount of investment that the BJP has put into creating WhatsApp groups across the country of people whom they can reach out through at election time. It's a remarkable feat in itself. So I thought it was important to document what was changing on the ground. And we live in fascinating times. You know, these are turbulent times.
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, and so you know, in the last 5 years, demonetization, Pulwama, all of them have had an impact on the Indian psyche in different ways. And I just feel, you know, if I'm doing, you know, when I'm doing television news, आज की खबर कल का इतिहास हो जाता है. You know, today's news is the next hour's, today's breaking news is the next hour's history. So people
Bilkul.
have no memory. You know, this is what do I call, I tell my kids they are part of the Snapchat generation. Yeah, Instagram, Snapchat. Now, you know, 20 years from now, I don't think you can capture an election on Instagram. I don't think you can capture an election on Twitter. So I think it was important to, in that sense, document it much more for people who want to understand what happened, why it happened. I think we don't often look at why things are happening around us, and this was an opportunity really to do that. So, I mean, you know, I'm a journalist first, then an author, but I think somewhere that converges. I don't know how I managed it last year because it wasn't easy. Waking up in the morning is not easy to write. It's a huge discipline. So I wrote a
Mm-hmm.
cricket book in between in 2016 called Democracy's 11. That was easier because cricket is your love, your passion is my love, my passion. So I wrote the cricket book more as a sort of just a way of feeling good about life. You know, whenever I write on cricket, or when I sort of watch cricket, I feel good. Politics makes you feel bad and angry. Uh, that's the difference. You know, politicians make you angry. Cricketers make you really feel good. But yeah, so I guess you know, writing a book is like sort of is not easy. It's arduous, but hugely satisfying at the end of the exercise.
Right. So
Because
if you were to weigh, sorry, but if you were to weigh being a journalist or with being an author, now that you've written 3 books and you've been in journalism for as long as I can remember, what would weigh heavier and why?
that's a good question. Look, I think they're completely different. Journalists, you know, we are chroniclers of history as it happens. So
Mm-hmm.
we're like daily wagers in a way, earning our wages for just putting out the news as it happens, particularly in television. You know, we are like a doctor on call. Raat ko koi breaking news ho gayi, we have to go for that. I think as an author, as a book writer, you have time to reflect, to introspect, to step back, and I guess the longevity of a book makes it, in a way, more satisfying. People ask me, what are the 3 more or 4 more satisfying things to you? I actually think uh, building a channel like NDTV first and then CNN IBN gave me huge satisfaction. And writing a book also gave me equal satisfaction. So I'm not going to choose, but they're very different in what I guess a book endures longer, and that's the one thing that stands out. But you know, working with a team to build a channel is also very satisfying. And a book is much more lonely. It's you and the computer. uh,
Right.
uh, you know, a television channel is a bit of a mela where everyone is involved. It's, you know, there's a sort of team spirit, and your cameraman is as important as you are, and you know, you just work together. So I think it very different kind of uh, sort of involvement in as a journalist, or as an editor in writing a book.
So, sir, how much do you think you as a journalist came through in the books that you wrote? Because both these books, barring the one you wrote on cricket in 2016, are political. That is where you live and thrive. So, how much of you as a journalist sort of overlapped you as an author when you brought those books forth?
Uh, uh, again a good question, because I think a lot, because I'll tell you that I remember a colleague of mine reading the 2014 book and coming to me and saying, "Sir, it looks like as if you're talking to us in the newsroom." So, when you write a book, I think that's an important element, that you've got to actually write it in a language, and that's what I've tried to do with these two books. The political. I want to make politics accessible to people. You should get intimidated by reading a book, of 350 pages on the elections. You should actually want to know more about politics. So that's the way I sort of chose to write it, to make it accessible.
So that tells me that you can take Rajdeep out of the newsroom, but you can't take the news out of Rajdeep.
Yeah, aisa hota hai, some people in life are one-legged ponies. They're one thing that they can do, and in my case, it's news. Uh, I always say that if you failed at everything else, there's always journalism. Uh, so that's the way I see news. I mean, news is a passion. I can't deny that it's been a passion for the longest time. So I think everything that I've done professionally has revolved around the core of being passionate about the news.
Right. It was so lovely chatting with you, sir. I see Jupinderjit
Thanks,
Singh is
Ritu.
gone, so the lawyer's going to leave the room and leave this to the two journalists.
Thank you so much. I
Uh,
was a Hi.
Hello, sir. Welcome. And I am so sorry there was some technical glitch. I was online for some time,
No
and
problem.
yeah. And it is such a pleasure to converse with you on such a serious topic of
Thanks, Ritu.
politics in India. And I hope they have given your introduction. But what we journalists feel about you is that you are still maintaining that brand of tough but unforgiving journalism. You don't shout before the camera, and you have such fan base, and uh, you know
No, Joginder,
still that.
I shout occasionally. I shout occasionally, not as much as the others. But yeah, okay. Look, I don't think you need to shout to be heard.
Yes. That's true, sir. We can be firm and yet polite, and yet we can be,
Absolutely.
result oriented. Sir,
Absolutely.
before we delve into your book, I was reading about you, and I found that you were the first one to predict that Sachin Tendulkar will be the new dawn of cricket, and you yourself are a very amazing cricket player. You played for Oxford University and some foreign universities. This is a side which I don't think everyone knows. So, and you wrote that wonderful article in Times of India, New Dawn of Cricket, when Sachin Tendulkar had his first, the Ranji Trophy debut. And on debut, he hit a century. So I think that was your first reporting assignment. You earlier you
Well,
were like,
well, I'll tell you what
yeah,
it was, Joginder. My father was a test cricketer through the
yes,
60s,
sir.
played 30 tests for India. So he was the real cricketer. I was only a,
Wow,
uh, I only dreamt to follow my father's footsteps. But, unlike a film star's son, a politician's son or daughter, you can become an MLA or an MP because you're someone's son or daughter. You can even become a film
yes, sir.
star like an Abhishek Bachchan, Tushar Kapoor, because your father is Jitendra, your father is Amitabh Bachchan. You cannot become a cricketer only because your father played for India.
Your
You need
father.
you need genuine talent. So I didn't have that
Yes.
talent, but I was
Oh,
always a romantic of the sport, and I was at the Times of India, and I was on the
yes,
edit
sir.
page. I was working on the edit page when I was told when I sort of saw Sachin Tendulkar one day on a weekend play, and I was really
Okay.
struck by how good he was. So when I found out that he was going to play first class cricket for Mumbai, I took a lunch break off from office and I went to watch the match. And that's the match where he scored 100. So I came back excitedly to office and said, "Look, I've seen the next big thing in Indian cricket." I don't think
Wow.
anyone, I don't think it required any great intelligence to suggest that Sachin Tendulkar would be the next big thing. He was just so good. I think anyone who saw him at that time from Mumbai would know that he was special. And yeah, that was my
Mhm.
first front page byline.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's what I read, sir. That's amazing. Amazing memory, sir. Yeah. And so, sir,
1988,
how, okay.
November.
Yeah. So, sir, how has this transition taken place over the years from 1988 to now? TV journalist. You have won about 50 awards, sir. And you have your own TV company, and now you're a consulting editor.
Yoginder,
How do you see the journey, sir?
look, let me be honest. I was always passionate about news, but if you look at India in the 1980s, what were the options if you were a journalist? You had half a dozen newspapers, and that's about it, right? There was
That's
Doordarshan, but
about
that
it, sir.
that was government owned. So when I came back from Oxford, I actually came back as a trained lawyer. But after 6 months at the Bombay High Court, man nahi lag raha tha. I don't know why. And I strayed into journalism, strayed into the Times of India, because there were Times of India was one place where you perhaps would apply. So I applied for an assistant editor at the Times of India. I met Girilal Jain,
Right,
and I
sir.
got, but that time we had I was a beneficiary of Manmohan Singh. Manmohan Singh's
Mhm.
liberalization in 1991 changed India completely, particularly for, in a way, my generation. Because by 94, after 6 years in print, I finally had the option, if I wanted to, of going into television. Frankly, in my heart of hearts, I was a print journalist. Television just happened. I met Pranoy Roy somewhere, and he said, I'm starting a daily news show. Would you like to join? I said, why not? Let's try it out. So within from 94, where we were doing one half an hour program on Doordarshan, to today, where there are 395 or 400 private news channels, there's been this news explosion, this revolution. And along with the news revolution, there's been an advertising revolution, there's been a consumer revolution. You have more and more products out there in the market. The expansion of the market created opportunities. And I think at one level it changed journalism for good and bad. Look,
Mhm.
I sometimes prefer the old days when there was no breaking news. It was a nicer, quieter, gentler time. आज देखो
Even
जैसे
I
you
do, sir.
as you said, there's so much of noise. There's so
Yeah,
much of noise and so little news sometimes. And I I
exactly.
I I would prefer the old days at times where we had more news and less noise. Having said that, my first salary as a journalist was 800 rupees. Today, can I afford to give any youngster who comes in 800 rupees? They will all want five-figure salaries from day one. So I think more opportunities have come for younger journalists. So that's the good part of it. I also think that technology is a huge enabler. I remember covering an earthquake in Latur in Maharashtra, in which an entire village was flattened, more than 10,000 people died. And our biggest challenge was, how do you get the news back to Mumbai? Because we were in a village called Killari, all communication broken down, and sort of just getting to the village and getting back to Aurangabad, which was the big city nearby, 400 kilometers away, sending the your telex messages, struggling to send a telex message. It was a big struggle.
It was
Contrast
a
that
huge
with,
task, sir.
look at it today. You can just you can have a live view on your mobile, and you can go live from anywhere in the world. So I think technology has completely revolutionized the profession, and we've only seen the beginning of it. Look at how we are conversing today. Imagine if COVID had taken place in the pre-mobile era. How would we have been able to, or pre-internet era, how would we have communicated to each other? So I think, there's been a dramatic transformation of a kind which is unimaginable in this country in the last 40 years. And I think news has been part of that transformation.
And sir, writing a book from reporting, is it also a part of transition, or is it something which you were always, from your day one you wanted to be an author? What led you to the book? It's very, very, it's quite a famous book, How Modi Won in India. So,
You know,
yeah.
uh, Again, I think my own sense is, all of us have one book somewhere in us. कुछ तो एक कहानी होती है which we want to tell the world. But
What a quote, sir. What a quote.
so my kahani was the Modi kahani in a way, because it's interesting. I met Narendra Modi for the first time in 1990. I was a young journalist. My first major assignment, in a way, was the Rath Yatra. And the first leg of Rath Yatra was through Gujarat. Mr. Modi was the general secretary in charge of the Rath Yatra in that first part of the Rath Yatra from Somnath to Mumbai. Uh, and then sort of, I sort of uh, tracked his journey from Gujarat till finally he comes to Delhi. So in a way, it's also part of my journey. So I thought, let me sort of in a way document that journey, and that's what led me to the 2014 book. As I said earlier, it was, I think, a election which changed India. A dramatic
Hmm.
election, BJP winning a majority for the first time. And I no, I'm not really. My wife is the author. Sagrika is the real author. She's got a natural, she's a natural writer. I'm not.
Wow.
I struggle. I am much more of a, I'm that old. I'm a news person, who can write about 500 words. Oh, 500. You see, the challenge for a journalist who's a daily journalist is 500 वर्ड को कैसे 50,000 बनाना है, उसके
50
बाद उसको 100,000 कैसे बनाना है. So
कैसे
the
बनाना
ability,
सर या.
how do you build a storyline is one of the challenges
Hmm.
for journalists when they become authors. The first book, for some reason, it just came out. It was, I think, as I said, the 25 years of tracking politics, all of it came together because, in a way, the journey of Indian politics from 1990 to 2014 is a journey which has seen India completely change. When I joined journalism, the BJP was a party of two MPs. Today, it's a party of more
Hmm.
than 300 MPs. In a
Yeah.
way, so that I've seen the transition in the party, and I've also seen the decline of the Congress. So, in the last 25 years, the big story of India is the decline of the Congress and the rise of the BJP. So, I think this is a story which is worth telling. Not, as I was telling Ritu earlier, that I think it's important to write about it so that 25 years from now, people will maybe read these books and see what happened in India between 20 in this last 10, 20 years. These have been dramatic years of change in this country.
So that means books are more lasting than
Oh,
our print and TV.
oh, absolutely. टीवी तो छोड़िए. टीवी तो आज की ब्रेकिंग, आज आप और हम कुछ ब्रेकिंग न्यूज करेंगे, 1 घंटे बाद लोग भूल जाएंगे. Today's news is tomorrow's history on TV, next hour's history.
Yeah.
Look at Instagram. You
Yeah.
can put up an Instagram post. It may go viral for a day, 2 days, but people forget about it in 10 days. So I think it's important
Exactly.
to do I think it's important to do something that lasts through time, that people might want to read 10, 20 years from now, especially because I grew up with, the 1977 election was the first election I remember, Indira Gandhi losing. And but if you want to read a book on it, you have one or two. Ek Janardhan Thakur ki ek kitab thi, I think all the prime ministers men. But otherwise, very
जी
little
जी
was
जी.
written. So I think it's important to write about dramatic events when, if you have journalism gives us a very privileged view, a kind of ringside view to what is happening. Why not use that privilege and that access to write about it?
Access.
Uh,
Access is
uh,
the main thing, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, access is important. The problem is, of course, that today's politicians don't give access unless you write good things about them, and that's not what I want to do. I don't want to write a book which is favors either Congress or BJP. In fact, after writing the book, a lot of people came to me say, "Arey, we thought you were anti Modi, but in the book it is more anti Rahul." I said, "देखिए ना, मुझे कुछ ना मोदी से लेना है ना राहुल से. The fact is, Modi won the election, Rahul Gandhi lost the
Yeah.
election. My book
Yeah.
has to explain why Modi won and why Rahul lost." So, I think journalists have to maintain a distance from politicians. But yes, the privileged access you give gives you an advantage in understanding what is happening around you.
Uh, Actually, that was my next question. That how did you achieve that? Because some of the reviews of your books and some of your fans has also said that they always thought you were anti-Modi and anti-Hindutva brand of journalist. And so how did you do it? I think one reviewer made it very nice that the greatness of your book was that that you set the political opinion of the time and your own personal political analysis separately. You kept them separately while writing the book. So how did
You
you
know,
achieve that, sir?
it's tough. I'm among those who believe there's nothing wrong in expressing your opinion, and you will see through the book at times that opinion does come through, but it comes through based on facts. I think it's important to put facts first. You can write an opinion then you might as well write an essay. But if you are writing a story, the facts must come first. Based on those facts, you are free to have your opinion. So I tried in both the books, the 2014 and the 2019 books, to put the facts out. People must know. You see, there's no point just critiquing Hindutva or critiquing Modi when the fact is that he's won two majorities. My job is to explain why he won it, how he's won it, what did he do. You see, the problem is we have become so polarized, even in newsrooms. आप बढ़ गए हैं. अरे आप एंटी मोदी है,
True,
आप
sir.
प्रो मोदी है, आप बीजेपी भक्त हैं, आप कांग्रेस चमचा है. अब यार ये सोशल मीडिया के जमाने में यू कैन पोलराइज पीपल. आई एम वेरी क्लियर. जर्नलिस्ट
Mhm.
धर्मा इज द न्यूज. खबर
It's the
दिखानी है.
news. Yes. Yes.
अब
Yes.
वो
Well said,
मैं
sir.
क्या, so I don't, so a book also in some level must be a story first. My aim is to
Mhm.
tell a good story. uh, and if you put your own opinion far too much in front, then the story gets lost. So I think that's what I've tried to do, to focus on telling a story. I'm you know
That's a
I,
very good lesson, sir.
yeah, I think it's a lesson for all of us in journalism now, because let's be honest, we have all got divided into camps, and I feel sad about that. Koi kehta hai aap BJP ke hai, koi Congress. I mean, this was not the case 30 years ago when I joined the profession.
Mhm.
There was, you weren't divided like this. Today, the unfortunately, the profession has also got divided like society. Society bhi bad gayi hai. Today, those who are watching also will have their own views, opinions, and then if I say something that they agree with, they'll say, bada acha hai. You are a good journalist.
Yeah.
If I say something they don't agree with, they'll say, देखो बिक गया है. बिल्कुल. Why? I mean, why? I'm here to offer a mirror to society, good, bad, and ugly. I'm not here to fight your battles.
Yeah. And one my personal query was, that how do you do you make daily notes that okay, this is something happening and I'll write a book on this. So do you make daily notes, or you have great memory? Like I was reading your book, and as Ritu said very rightly, that your book is like your TV show. It's like live transmission. You actually take the reader. In the preface only, you took the reader to America, where Mr. Modi was honored after the his landslide victory. So how do you do it? I mean, it will be a good lesson for budding authors, not just journalists but others also. How do you plan a book? How do you go into that system, sir?
It's a good question. The 2014 book, when I wrote The Election That Changed India, frankly happened almost as I was writing it. I was putting it to, I was telling stories. 2019, about a year before, maybe 2 years before, I started taking not notes, but whenever I would find an interesting article, something I created a WhatsApp group for myself called Research for Book. So
Wow,
that so
that's a
that
good thing.
WhatsApp, which has research for book, had all the list of various things that were happening almost on a daily basis or weekly basis. If there was an interesting article, something, so I created my own sort of data bank, if you want to call it that. In the 2014 book, that was not the case. But the one thing common is that before I started writing it, I created a structure for myself in my mind. कि ये पहले करना,
Okay.
ये दूसरा. So I think it's important to create a structure for a book, because when you create a structure, it becomes easier. You have a structure in your mind, put it down on paper in terms of chapterization. I think it's important to create
Mm-hmm.
chapterization in your mind. If you can create the chapterization, it may change somewhere a little bit in midway. You may have some new things to come in, but if you have a broad chapterization, then it becomes easier to write the story. The story must have a start, it must have an end, it must have a middle, but that process must begin, I believe, when you start writing. And I think if you can do that, then I think half your battle is won, if you can get your chapterization right.
Wonderful idea. Then it becomes all scientific. So you
Well,
can't stray.
scientific, yeah, it at least, yeah, it gives you a focus. It gives you a
Yeah.
focus. It focuses your mind. I think that's very important while writing a book, that you don't allow your mind to stray in too many different directions. You know what you want to actually communicate to the reader.
And sir, when you're writing about
Please don't
something
serve
like
me.
Mr. Sir, it is in your name, sir, Sardesai, so I
अब
can't
क्या,
help it.
चलिए, of
You are
course.
such a So, sir, I mean, when you are writing about Mr. Modi and BJP, and so what kind of external and internal pressures do you feel? Were there any pressures, or please?
It's a good, it's a very good question, because I think one of the things is that what has happened is that you're very conscious कि मैं अगर कुछ लिखूं उसका उस politician पर क्या, not just Modi, any politician, any person you write about, उन पर क्या impact होगा. And I think that's something that is there at the back of your mind, but it cannot be at the front, because then you are not
Oh,
honest. I think it's
wonderful,
important to
sir.
be honest. I think you have to be honest with your reader and what you're writing. You are not writing a book to please anyone or to anger someone. You are, so for example, when I wrote this one line in one of the books, Rahul Gandhi has never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Uh, now, somebody, one Congress person said, Rahul Gandhi ji will not like this. I said, I'm not writing this book for Rahul Gandhi. Similarly, I was critical of the way Mr. Modi had handled demonetization, in the sense that I do believe that the decision was taken without due consultation. And I write about it in the book. So somebody would probably turn around and say, look at this, you're criticizing the prime minister. Now, the problem is that we are caught today, as I say again, between competing armies. ये दो अपने अपने सोल्जर लेके आते हैं. एक बीजेपी की आर्मी है, दूसरी तरफ कांग्रेस की आर्मी है. I don't think you write a book for the armies. You write a book for the millions of Indians who are not identified either with Congress, BJP, just want to read about what has happened. Right? I think the important, you don't write a book for your source or for a politician. You write a book for the reader. If you can do that, I think you've achieved a large amount of success.
I think that's the greatest piece of advice which we can take from here, sir. And sir, your book also talked a lot about Mr. Amit Shah, and you mentioned him as the greatest election machine ever. So tell us something about him, because you have access to him
Yeah.
and you have seen him working.
See, more than Amit Shah being the greatest election machine, what I write about is the BJP machine, really, in which Amit Shah has played a major role. Look, people look at Amit Shah and Modi today, and as I write in the book, in 1986 or 87, they campaigned for Ahmedabad municipal election, and they campaigned on it on a scooter, Purani Bajaj scooter pe. Amit Shah would be driving it, Modi was sitting pillion, and they were going through
My
the
God,
gullies of Ahmedabad. And what were they doing in the evening? They would put up posters. कि पोस्टर
from
लगाना है.
that level. Oh,
हाँ, तो you see, sometimes we forget कि we are looking at them today. 35 years ago, it's like a journalist, right? मैं reporter हूँ, मैं जाता हूँ, my first reporting assignment was as a crime reporter. तो मैं पुलिस कमिश्नर के ऑफिस जाता था, वहां से प्रेस रिलीज लेना है. Today you have your own TV program. Similarly, they have started from the very bottom in
scratch.
that sense,
Yeah.
and therefore they have mastered the art over the years. Amit Shah is ruthless. Let's be honest. Everybody has the lines between being a genius and being evil. An evil genius is a very thin one. अब अमित शाह की एक स्टोरी है which I didn't put in the book because I couldn't confirm it, but I'll tell you today, which because now I have been told it is probably true. First election that
Wow.
Amit Shah contested was for the students union election in his college. ठीक है?
Okay. Okay.
Evening before the election, his person who was his friend told him, Amit bhai, you are losing the election. Against him, there was
Okay.
there was a woman candidate against him from NSUI. So he said, why am
Okay,
I
sir.
losing? He said, नहीं, जितनी लड़कियां हैं वो लड़की को वोट दे रहे हैं. And in that class, there were equal number of girls and boys. So he said, all the girls will vote one way and the boys are divided. You will lose the election. So then what did Amit Shah do? He and his friend got the names of all the girls, their phone number, that is pre-mobile days, and the
My
addresses.
God.
And they contacted the parents of all those girls and told them that don't send your daughter next day during the elections to college because there can be violence in the college. Half the girls did not, half the parents did not send their daughters next day to the college as a result. Amit Shah won by 10 votes.
My goodness.
अब आप जानिए कहां से आ रहे हैं.
by
Now,
by hook
some
or
will,
by crook, sir.
बिल्कुल, some कहेंगे ये तो साम दाम दंड भेद है, hook or by crook, he's a genius. Others will say ये तो बिल्कुल evil genius है. So you see, you don't in politics, and therefore I think, I don't think the Congress or even many people realize what they're up against. Plus, you have the RSS machine, you have a cadre. You see, Congress एक पुरानी इंजन, पुरानी फिएट की तरह हो गई है, और बीजेपी जो है वो टोयोटा की तरह या आपके एसयूवी की तरह आज चलती है. So when you have an SUV on one side and a purani Fiat on the other, that's the difference. The BJP is constantly, I mean, no, I'm not saying all the means are fair. They are using also, there's a lot of money power behind this machine. Every machine needs oiling. So there's a lot of oil being put into the machine as well. Electoral bonds is one way to put the oil into the machine. So, but you have to accept that they have worked at it for 40 years. This has not happened overnight.
Oh. And that's where your book tells it. So, sir, you mentioned about Congress. So, is it going to decline further? What are the reasons for its decline?
I think maybe the next book has to be written more on the Congress than anything else, because I think one of the more, look, this was the party that dominated Indian politics for about 50 years or 40 years, certainly from 47 to about 90. And I think over time, क्या होता है, rust has set in. क्या कहते हैं rust को हिंदी में? एक तरह से
जंग लग गया सर.
जंग लग गया, बिल्कुल जंग लग गया है. और क्या हुआ है कि we blame Rahul Gandhi. I actually blame Rahul Gandhi's dadi, Indira Gandhi, because Indira Gandhi created a high command culture. That high command culture could work as long as Indira Gandhi was this dominant, imperious figure running India, virtually as a sort of almost like a dictator. But when challengers come, when politics changes, you have to change with the times. I don't think that same kind of Indira Gandhi politics where everything is decided in Delhi by a few people can work anymore. You see, you had to empower regional leaders. You had to create a more decentralized structure, a more accountable structure. To my mind, you can't run a party today only like a family business. And somewhere the Congress became umbilically tied to the family. And over time, I think that is now becoming destructive. It could work in Indira Gandhi's time. It doesn't work today. So I think this has been a gradual decline. And I actually see the Congress declining further unless they want to reinvent. It's a great brand. Let's be honest. आप छोटे से गांव में जाए, पंजाब या कहीं भी, लोग कांग्रेस तो जानते हैं, पंजा जानते हैं. But every brand needs reinvention. If today the Congress can reinvent itself, it can still come back and emerge as a potential opponent to the BJP in the future. But if it does not, then I think it is blocking the path of the emergence of a credible opposition. And India today,
which is so important. Yeah.
Very important. India desperately needs a credible opposition. Today, parliament bills are passed without even proper discussion. Why? Because the opposition is so weak. And that is not good for democracy.
Exactly, sir. Yeah. That's the main concern, sir.
Absolutely. And I think, therefore, we are going to have to find a way we are going to have to hope that the Congress either reinvents itself or in a way just sort of withers away so that koi aur nayi force aa jaye which can challenge the BJP, because we need two strong parties.
Yeah. And so some of our viewers, we are getting a lot of comments and questions, and some of the viewers want to say that the journalism is also at a very, very crucial point, where the Supreme Court is saying that, we need self-regulation is not enough. So how will TV journalism, what will they do, sir, now? Especially, this Sushant Singh Rajput case. You had exclusive interview with Riya Chakravarti, sir. And so...
ऐसा है, just as the Congress party is in decline, so is TV journalism. हमारी भी मौत आ रही है. We are also with.
Don't say that.
नहीं देखिए.
That's very sad.
Joginder, this latest incident of Sushant Singh Rajput, according to me, is one of the final nails in our coffin. यार किसी की suicide हुई है. Without even examining the facts, we went ahead and blamed Riya Chakrabarti. Now the entire इतने महीने हो गए CBI को क्या मिला है? And we went on
Nothing.
virtually accusing her of murder, accusing her of all, without any evidence. We reversed the entire principle of law, which is innocent till proven guilty. और क्या क्या तमाशा चला टीवी पे 2 महीने के लिए तमाशा. That's the word I use. Now, if we have reduced TV to tamasha, then journalism is in a serious crisis. And this is one of the problems. Just as we need a credible opposition, we also need a credible media. Ab ya to media is just simply towing the government's line without even questioning the government, or the media is resorting to this tamasha. How is the viewer getting any knowledge? इतनी चीजें इस देश में हो रही है. इकोनॉमी की सिचुएशन देखिए. Look at what is the COVID pandemic has done to the lives of people. Instead of focusing on that, TV news in particular, and I'm referring here to the TV media. I think print is relatively protected, but TV media is only doing drama and entertainment. This is not why we became journalists. We didn't become journalists to chase सुशांत सिंह राजपूत का, सॉरी, दीपिका पाडुकोने's कार. अरे देखिए गाड़ी में दीपिका बैठी है, क्या कर रही है दीपिका, चलिए चलिए. ये क्या तमाशा है? Is this why we became journalists, to chase Deepika Padukone's car, and then it turns out to be the wrong car in which she's not even sitting?
So, sir, our esteemed viewer, Mr. Daljit Chima, he's a writer also. He's also asking that how will we get ethical and responsible journalism back from this stage, sir?
Look, as I said, I think let's be honest. Don't only define journalism by primetime TV. There is more to journalism. I think a lot of the newspapers still are more honest. The front page of newspapers does give you more news than noise. But ethical journalism, I think, has to come, frankly, from those who lead the profession, the editors, the proprietors. I think they are the ones who have to set the standards. अगर वो अपनी स्टैंडर्ड नहीं सेट करे, अगर वो अपना जो अखबार है या टीवी चैनल है एक तरह से कमर्शियल प्रोडक्ट की तरह लोगों के सामने रखे, जहां जो बिकता है वो दिखता है, अगर ये आपकी फिलॉसफी है तो आप फिर कहां एथिकल स्टैंडर्ड? सो द स्टैंडर्ड्स हैव टू बी सेट, जस्ट एज आई बिलीव द स्टैंडर्ड्स इन द जुडिशरी हैव टू बी सेट बाय द हाईएस्ट, by the Supreme Court. The standards in journalism have to be set by editors and proprietors, and they have to try and raise the bar. They have to say, yaar, dekho, we have become journalists, or we have set up media organizations for a particular purpose, which is to contribute to society, to make society a better place, not to resort to tamasha. And I hope viewers also, like Daljit, will also discriminate between channels that are resorting only to noise and those which want to give news.
Yeah, exactly, sir. And there's a question on fake news, sir. That how can the fake news is everywhere. Who to trust and how to trust? How do you do that, sir?
No, it's a very difficult question. I'll give you an example. Ab 2 दिन पहले, 2 days ago, that I reached office at 6:30. Suddenly I see a flash coming. India's airstrikes in Pakistan. India has struck in Pakistan, flashing across 4 channels. मैंने कहा क्या हुआ, कब हुआ? नहीं सर, ये PTI पर आ रहा है. I said, really? India has gone into Pakistan in POK. India. Later on, within 5 minutes, it turned out that what was said was pinpointed strikes by army on terror launch pads a week ago. Now, there is a difference between air strikes that have taken place and a pinpointed strike on a terror launch pad 1 week ago. But for 5 minutes, every channel saying, Bharat ne Pakistan ko sabak sikhaya, air strike ek baar fir, Balakot part 2. Kya hua hai? We have reduced this profession. Why is fake news? Why is there this fake news industry? Because technology now allows you to transmit news in real time. This whole breaking news concept, ki jaisi khabar aaye, aap chala do. It could be on mobile, it could be on TV, it could be anywhere. So that you have no time to press the pause button. हम जब print करते थे, when I was in print between 88 and 94, जो अच्छी बात थी, we could press the pause button. So we could verify. Now there is no time to verify. अगर आपको कल WhatsApp कोई message मिल गया, you will immediately forward it to your friends. Do you verify it? I call it the WhatsApp University. People now don't go to Chandigarh University or Punjab University, they go to WhatsApp University. or WhatsApp University is built around the concept of spreading news in real time. Now, some of that news could be propaganda. Political parties have realized it. I have given in my book, one of the W's that I cite is WhatsApp. I say, there are 13 M's, 2 W's, and 1 GK responsible for Modi's success. One of the W's that I've cited is WhatsApp. Because today, in every booth, the BJP has a WhatsApp group. Now, remember, there are 10 lakh booths across India. So you have created about almost 10 lakh WhatsApp groups. Multiply that by 250 per group. Think about the number of people whom you are touching in some form or the other. So agar मैं रोज कहूं कि take this concept of love jihad. Now, is there love jihad? What is love jihad? But if I keep saying on WhatsApp day after day कि जब हिंदू लड़की मुस्लिम लड़के के साथ शादी करती है लव जिहाद है, और day to day it goes into your WhatsApp groups. I show some photograph. I claim that this girl was forcibly converted. हमारे मन में दिमाग में वो बात चलती रहती है. So it reinforces our prejudices. So what the fake news industry is doing is creating an alternate universe. Now, how do you control it? I don't know. All you can do is try in your own small way to create a system for verification. But frankly, I feel powerless today. How do I create 10 lakh WhatsApp groups to counter an existing narrative? I don't have the capacity. So I think that is the biggest danger. That we don't have the means to combat this fake news narrative. And that's why you've got people like Trump who can lie his way to the White House. I mean, if in America, you can have a president who can just lie his way to the White House and nobody is able to question him. What does that say?
Well, sir, we've got a cue from the organizers, and it's such a big platform. The Chandigarh Literary Society has given to so many viewers who can listen to you. We see you on TV, but knowing you today was a far enriching experience, and hope so that after this Corona thing, the vaccines are success, so that you can come to Chandigarh and we can have a one-to-one session, in front of live audience. It was pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope that you will call me next year. We will talk and then have butter chicken and a good drink and a good drink together.
Sure, sir. That would be my pleasure, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all the members of the Chandigarh Literary Society for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.